Good morning and welcome to Unitarian Universalist Church in Pasadena. Welcome to all members, friends, and guests. My name is Lectio and I am serving as your worship associate today. Neighborhood Church creates and grows an inclusive community of faith connected by love, spirit, and service. We acknowledge our presence on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples, the traditional caretakers of the lands and waters of this campus. With respect for the rights and wisdom of Indigenous people, we acknowledge our harmful colonial histories and commit to decolonizing our own practices, to learning new ways of being a community and with each other in good relationship with the Indigenous people of this land and with the land itself. Today's service is led by Senior Minister, Reverend Dr. Omega Burkhardt, with music led by Music Director Dr. Zenaida Robles, with Associate Music Director Wells Lang, soloist Adrian Benuelos, and the Neighborhood Chorus. Please take a moment to silence your devices as we begin our service. Families with young children are always welcome in the sanctuary, and there is additional seating in the entry foyer or narthex, which is out there. I have two brief announcements. If you're a visitor, a new member who has questions about a Unitarian Universalist faith and or want to know more about Neighborhood Church, this meeting is for you. Join Director of Congregational Life, Ginger Fiore, and Reverend Omega Burkhardt today after the service in the living room for an informational conversation together about being new to UU. And two, Neighborhood's young adult group, 20s and 30s, will host a pumpkin carving, gourd painting, on the picnic tables in the fenced-in courtyard on Sunday, October 27th, after the service. All ages welcome. We are excited for the opportunity to mingle with other church members and kids. Our staff, young adult coordinator, Anna Prespo, will have an assortment of gourds for painting and a few pumpkins for carving. Please feel free to also bring your own supplies. Apple cider and light snacks will be provided. More extensive announcements, as well as our order of service this morning, are available as a link on the Sunday email. Our order of service is also available online by scanning the QR code on the back of your hymnal with your phone camera. Again, welcome to Neighborhood Church, whoever you are and wherever you are in your spiritual journey. Welcome to this inclusive faith, connected by love, spirit, and service. Thank you.
The leaves rustle as they yellow and brown, falling to the dust-covered ground, even in unseasonable fog like we had this morning. A quiet imbues that morning silence this time of year for me with a tenor of nostalgia and expectancy. We make preparations to honor our ancestors at this time of year, to celebrate the diversity of our heritages, a quiet symphony of deep chords, of bass and tenor resonating in our center. Welcome to the season of deep listening. The number 13 is sacred to many indigenous groups, including the Mexica and the Maya, writes curandera Maestra Grace. She writes, in Mesoamerican philosophy, there are 13 heavens, thought to also represent 13 levels of consciousness. There are 13 lunar cycles and 13 major joints in the human body. Men and women are considered to have reached elderhood at the age of 52, which is the completion of a cycle of rounds of 13 years each. 13 is also the number of large patches on the back of the tortoise. Today, on the 13th of October, we sit on the cusp of Indigenous Peoples Day, and we are also honoring Hispanic Heritage Month. We light this chalice to remember the light within, to know that the hunger we feel inside is an echo of inner wisdom. It wants something more for us, something for others, for this weary and yet wonderful world. So come, let us worship together this morning. I invite you to center your arrival here, finding yourself, the where and the when of yourself here. Leave what you don't need to hold. Leave it for just a few moments as we gather today. Center your body here. Center your heart here. Perhaps closing your eyes if it is comfortable to you. Breathing deeply in and out. I invite you to hear the sounds of this space, the crinkles, the rustling, the toe taps of others here, for we do gather in community. Then slowly bring your awareness to your own heartbeat. Breathing in and out for a moment of silence together. now coming back from your deep interior, breathing into this space, opening your eyes, and looking around at the community gathered.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing our opening hymn number 352, Find a Stillness.
Good morning. I'm Matt Vasco, Neighborhood's Director of Spiritual Exploration. May I please have all of the children and youth forward for a story for all ages. Good job, Finn. Thanks for helping. All right, kids, it's time to see if you were paying attention when Reverend Omega was speaking earlier. She said that we're about to have a holiday. Does anybody know what holiday's tomorrow? Oh, wow, somebody's excited about Halloween, but you're jumping the gun. There's another one before that, right here. Oh, did you raise your hand? No? Okay. You're playing with your hair. It's okay. It's Indigenous Peoples Day. Indigenous Peoples Day is tomorrow. And, you know, there's a very powerful thing that we say now with regard to Indigenous Peoples Day. What the Indigenous folks want us to say is that they are still here. Indigenous people are still here, still living in this area. The Tongva tribe, whose land we are on, still lives here in the Pasadena area. And that's a powerful message. And it's a different message than I was told when I was growing up, because a lot of times they would talk about Native people in America in the past tense. We need to remember that Native people are here and they live among us. So that's my lesson to you for Indigenous Peoples Day. And I have a book. I have a really lovely book on our monthly theme, which is deep listening. And among the things we need to listen to is our own hearts, right? We need to do deep listening with our own hearts. And that's what this book is about. It's called I Am Peace. And it's by Susan Verde with pictures by Peter H. Reynolds. There are times when I worry about what might happen next and what happened before. Do you ever do that? No? Well, good. The thoughts in my head are like rushing water, and I feel like a boat with no anchor, just adrift, being carried away. Splash. Oh, goodness. What's going to happen next, I wonder? I give myself a moment. I take a breath. And then I tell myself, it's all right. Can we all say that together? It's all right. Yeah. I feel the ground beneath my feet and steady myself. And start to notice the here and the now. That's called mindfulness. My thoughts begin to settle. My mind begins to clear. I am peace. I can watch my worries gently pop and disappear. I let things go. I can say what I feel inside out loud. I know myself. I can share kindness with others. I make a difference. Can we all say that together? I make a difference. Yes, you do. Plop, down goes a seed. What's going to happen now? The seed sprouted. It's growing. Oh my goodness, it's a tree. I can hug a tree and thank it for its beauty and strength. I connect to nature. That's good for us. Yes, connecting with nature is good for us. I can watch the clouds make shapes against the sky. I know wonder. I can taste and smell and touch and hear and see what is all around me. I use my senses. I can feel my breath fill my whole body and tune into me. Now the water is still. I have found my anchor, and everything is all right. I don't need to worry about before or after. I am in this moment. I am peace. Can we all say that together? I am peace. Yes. Now I share my peace with others and hope that it is carried away to those who need it. And I dream we are peace. Can we all say that together? We are peace. Yes, we are. Amen. It's like a book and a prayer. All right, please join me in singing our children and youth out to their spiritual exploration classes.
Each Sunday, our congregation dedicates 100% of its contributions to 501c3 organizations or neighborhood church-based social justice activities that are making a difference in our community and the world. Each selected guest organization aligns with our community's mission and values and is nominated by church members who often are longtime volunteers and supporters of these change-making organizations. You can donate in one of two ways. You can use your cell phone to donate by texting the number on the screen. Point to the screen. I thought, sorry, I read that like, well, yeah, one of these screens. I was telling you guys to point your phone to the screen, but anyways. Sorry, take a second to not die of humiliation. Or if you prefer to donate in person, put your donation in one of the designated boxes during the music or after the service. There's a donation box here in the front, behind the back center row, and in the narthex entryway on the table. You may rise during the music to put your donation in the box if you wish. Please extend help to those in your neighborhood who may need assistance reaching the donation box. If you wish to make a payment toward your pledge or contribute to church operations, make a note in the subject line or use the envelope available in the donation boxes. This week, our gifts will support Jericho Road. Here with more information is Andy Eaton.
Thank you, Lexi. I'm Andy Eaton, both a member of the church and a member of the Jericho Road Board. Jericho Road was actually started 14 years ago here in this very sanctuary. Reverend Hannah Petrie, John Blue, Fran Newman, Christine Bender, Barbara Eaton, and John Wilson were all founding board members. Neighborhood folks have served as board members and stalwart volunteers for Jericho Road ever since it was started 14 years ago. And there's always been a neighborhood church member who was part of the board of Jericho Road. I'm thinking that that's why I was chosen to be on the board. It's not that I had any talents. But it basically just demonstrates how inextricably linked we are with Jericho Road. Out of curiosity, could I see a show of hands of all those who have either served on the board of Jericho Road, done a volunteer project for Jericho Road, or previously donated to Jericho Road? Look at that. It's a majority. So basically, we accomplish our work by a very careful process of matching skilled volunteers with nonprofits, generally in the Pasadena area, needing assistance. This can be as varied as website development, strategic planning, accounting services, you name it, we've probably got a need for that kind of service. It's basically just very low-cost consulting service. Now, for those of you who don't know this about me, I'm a numbers geek. So I'd like to call your attention basically to what Jericho Road has accomplished in these last 14 years. Our volunteers have carried out nearly 750 projects, accounting for almost 25,000 hours worth of volunteer time. And if those volunteers had charged for their time, that would have represented about $2.5 million worth of equivalent service, which clearly most nonprofits can't afford. These projects have served nearly 260 nonprofits in the Pasadena area. What else do? We also offer direct training to nonprofit board members and nonprofit executive directors. Just in 2024, this particular service has helped 80 unique nonprofits, and yet we operate on a shoestring. There are only 2 paid staff in Jericho Road. We can use your donations. We can also use your help as a skilled volunteer. If you're interested in providing services, I urge you to contact Kim Olpen, our executive director, at execdirector@jrppasadena.org. If you just want to give money, we'll definitely take that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for giving generously.
Today's music is in Portuguese. Mulher rendera. Mulher rendera. Hey, lace maker woman. Hey, lace maker woman. If you teach me how to weave, I'll teach you how to court. Virgulino is lampeao. He is lampa, lampa, lampa. He is lampeao. His name is Virgulino. His nickname is lampeao. This is Mulher Rendera by Pinto Fonseca.
For today's reading is an old Europe basket by Ursula Le Guin. This is made by a most skillful maker. The ease of the pattern's recurrence is noble, so is the curve of the whole, the colors, the soft yellow-brown and the warm brown. Yet in the way that it sits, I see something, imperfect, expectant, immediate, alert like a bird with its head cocked. It grew into being, its stillness remembers, the tug of the little reed root in the current. The humor of pliable, sensitive fingers is here in the weave of the fern stems. The even, uneven rhythm of life work. And this is what's missing, my heart says, what's missing.
So this is Cucurucucu Paloma. It is, let's see, translation. So it's pretty much of speaking about a dove who has lost its lover and is longing for their return, but they are not going to return. So the dove is sitting outside the lover's home, crying, and that's what he does all night. He just cries. Cucurucucu, cucurucucu. Yeah, that's pretty much what it's about. Dicen que no comía, nomás le iban puro llorar. Dicen que no dormía, nomás le iban puro tomar. Juran que el mismo cielo se estremecía al oír su llanto, cómo sufrió por ella, que hasta la muerte la fue llamando. Ay, 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 lloraba. Ay, 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 reía. Ay, 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 ay. Mortal moría, que una paloma triste muy de mañana le iba a cantar a su casita sola, con sus puertitas en par en par. Juran que esa paloma no es otra cosa más que su alma, que todavía la espera a que regrese la desdichada. Cucurucucu, No llores, las piedras jamás, paloma. ¿Qué van a saber de amores? Cucurrucucú, cucurrucucú, cucurrucucú. Paloma, ya no le llores.
An old Yurok basket. This was made by a most skillful maker. The ease of the pattern's recurrence is noble, so is the curve of the whole. And the colors, the soft yellow-brown and the warm brown. Yet in the way that it sits, I see something imperfect, expectant, immediate. Alert like a bird with its head cocked, it grew into being. Its stillness remembers the tug of the reed root in the current, the humor of pliable, sensitive fingers is here in the weave of the fern stems, the even, uneven rhythm of life work. And this is what's missing, my heart says. What's missing? The Yurok basket weavers who live along the banks of the Klamath River where it meets the Pacific Ocean north of here. A poem was shared with me by a colleague, and I'm delighted to share it with you today. Robin Wall Kimmerer, a Potawatomi writer and doctor of environmental biology and botany, writes that one of her teachers and community elders, a man by the name of John Pigeon, And she describes his skill of basket weaving as an ancestral practice passed from generation to generation in what we would now call the upper Midwest. She writes in Braiding Sweetgrass this about John. Like the rest of the family, John is also a master teacher, committed to sharing what has been passed on by generations who came before. What was given to him, he now gives back to the people. Some basket classes I've taken start with a neat pile of materials, all assembled on a clean table. But John doesn't hold with teaching basket weaving where the splints come ready-made. He teaches basket making, beginning with a living tree. Black ash like to have its feet wet. In floodplain forest and edges of swamps, black ash mingles with red maples, elms, and willows. It is never the most common tree. You find it scattered in patches, so it can take a long day of tromping over boot-sucking ground to find just the right tree. And yet it's not enough to simply find black ash. It has to be the right one, a tree ready to be a basket. An ideal basket ash has a straight, clear bowl with no branches in the lower trunk, because branches make knots that interrupt the straight grain of the splint. A good tree is about a hand breadth across, the crown full and vigorous, a healthy tree. John, she goes on to say, has developed a practiced eye for these things, but sometimes just to be sure, he'll unsheath his knife and cut out a wedge for a look at the rings. John prefers a tree in the range of 30 to 40 growth rings, each ring as wide as a nickel. When he's found the right one, the harvest begins, not with a saw, though, but rather with a conversation. Robin Wall Kimmerer goes on to describe how the beauty of these baskets is juxtaposed in her modern home of laptops and pencils and plastic materials and store-bought fruit on her desk. And she finds sometimes this incongruity, the dissonance of capitalism, the materialism that comes with it, at odds with the natural beauty of the baskets. But when she is attentive, and when she is living with observation, when she slows down to give gratitude, she remembers the lessons of those baskets, the lessons of John, her teacher. She writes, but every once in a while, with a basket in a hand, or a peach, or a pencil, there's a moment when the mind and spirit open to all the connections, to all the lives, in our responsibility to use them well. And just in that moment, I can hear John Pigeon say, slow down. It's 30 years of a tree's life you have in your hands there. Don't you owe it a few minutes to think about what you'll do with it? An old Yurok basket. This was made by a most skillful maker. The ease of the pattern's recurrence is noble. So is the curve of the whole and the colors, the soft yellow-brown and the warm brown. Yet in the way that it sits, I see something imperfect and expectant and immediate, alert like a bird with its head cocked. It grew into being. Its stillness remembers the tug of that living reed root in the current. The humor of pliable, sensitive fingers is here in the weave of the fern stems. The even and uneven rhythm of life work. And this is what's missing, my heart says. What's missing? Lectio Divina is a method of engaging with sacred texts, dating back centuries, codified as a practice of engaging with biblical passages, specifically by Benedict. Lectio Divina, or divine reading, is a method of engaging with texts with a repetitive manner, but leaving space for prayer and contemplation and meditation. Often done in rounds of 4 or 5 cycles. The beauty of a Lectio Divina session lives in the intersection of space, of slowing down, and of reflection. It is an act of deep listening. It is an act of deep listening to our inner knowledge, of deep listening to the world, of deep listening to the layers and the weavings of spirit, or that which is greater than us. Here is a truth from my life that it took me years to realize. I am a better reader of poetry in Spanish and Portuguese than I am of poetry written in English, precisely because it makes me slow down. I suspect, like many of us, I have been trained, culturally taught from the very youngest age, that doing more and doing it faster is somehow better. And it would prove that I am good enough. When I became a student of poetry written in Spanish in my teens, I was forced to slow down. I still feel the tumble of the words as they leave my mouth. I play with the language in my head to understand the syntax and the verbal structures and the accentuation and the tense. I slow down. I repeat it. I slow down. I give space for digestion. In this act, I do not have to prove my productivity. The productivity is found in the richness of the experience, the deep listening that comes up in the spaces between the work of deciphering. It comes up in the spaces of intentional silences. An old Yurok basket. This was made by a most skillful maker. The ease of the pattern's recurrence is noble, and so is the curve of the whole and the colors and the soft brown and the warm brown. Yet in the way that it sits, I see something imperfect and expectant and immediate. It is alert, like a bird with its head cocked. It grew into being, and its stillness remembers. It remembers the tug of the living reed root in the current, the humor of pliable, sensitive fingers. It's here in the weave of the ferns and the stems, the even and uneven rhythm of life work. And this is what's missing, my heart says. What's missing? We choose what we iterate. My colleague in Santa Barbara, the Reverend Julia Hamilton, said this recently in a gathering of ministers. We choose what we iterate. Likely because I had this service in my mind, tumbling around in my mind. I have been holding that phrase since she said it with some care recently. The cyclical nature of our seasons, of the deep listening that calls to us in the autumn as the leaves golden and fall and the sun dips lower in the sky. These all spark in me the desire for ritual and iteration and the slowing down between those spaces. I believe the act of slowing down and creating space, it helps us build capacity to listen deeply to our own knowledge, and it helps us build capacity to listen deeply to others, to commune with others into a whole that is much larger than ourselves. The Reverend Dr. Sanda Fees describes it this way. She says, here's where Unitarian Universalists sometimes get off track. Sometimes make the focus on listening to self with such a fierce individualism and independence. The worth and dignity of every person, every self, and sometimes this gets used to prioritize one individual without an equal concern for relationships and community. But listening to self actually turns out to be inseparable from listening to others. The attentiveness to ourself is inextricably related to attentiveness to the other, to the greater wholeness. As Dag Hammarskjöld says, the more faithfully you listen to the voice within you, the better you will hear what is sounding outside. Ultimately, she goes on to say, deep listening connects to the spirit in all, in us, to each other, and the universe, and other beings. We are called to be faithful to our inner lives so that we can be faithful to outer lives as well. And this basket, this was made by a most skillful maker. The ease of the pattern's recurrence is noble. So is the curve of the whole and the colors, the soft yellow-brown and the warm brown. Yet in the way that it sits, I see something imperfect and expectant and immediate. It is alert like a bird with its head cocked. It grew into being. Its stillness remembers the tug of the living reed root in the current, the humor of pliable and sensitive fingers is here in the weave of the fern stems, the even, uneven rhythm of life work. And this is what's missing, my heart says. What's missing?
Our closing hymn is in your teal hymnal. Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing Nada te turbe in Spanish. We will sing it through 3 times. 10:47.
Extinguimos esta llama hoy, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de la comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos os llevaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. For these we will carry in our hearts until we are together again.